So approximation was conceived in the southernmost urban settlement on this planet in Porto Williams on Tierra del Fuego, on an island called Isla Navarino, or called by the indigenous community Chunuco. My interest started with indigenous tribes, the Sagnam, Alakaluf, and the Yagans, as they were called in the Chilean culture as a nation and a culture to be disappeared. And what was interesting to me is that the German anthropologist and missionary Martin Kusinde undertook several expeditions and field trips in the early 20th century. And he documented in a quite outstanding oeuvre the last free living indigenous tribes. Martin Kusinde's estate is today housed in St. Augustine in Germany, while in the Martin Kusinde Museum on Isla Navarino, a museum commissioned by Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet in the early 1970s, only shows artifacts and replicas. So I thought that would be quite an interesting link between two nations and two cultures. And I undertook several research trips before I decided to establish myself for 4 months on that island in order to observe and consider a nation and its culture that was condemned to disappear. That's how anthropologists and sociologists look at this culture today. The phase of trust building with the scandals of the indigenous people led to my stay at Bahia Mejillones in Catushuaya, which was the ancestral place of the last free living Yagas before they were resettled by the Chilean military. I stayed there for another 2 months, living in wooden shacks with fishermen, with hunters, with people that tried to save their culture by living in this particular part of the island, but also in taking care of their heritage. That meant that they built religious architectures, they took care of a cemetery, and they would go fishing. The Yagans were typically hunters and gatherers, but only for seafood. On the other hand, I also shot in a high-tech facility like a Centoria factory, a king crab factory, that exports straight to China, for example. So you have a post-forwarded system with a factory that runs 7 days a week, 365 days per year, with workers that also partly belong to the indigenous community. Yeah, so you also have different economic systems at play in this place, but also in this video installation. And what is really important to me in this work is that it should somehow approach issues like ethnology or anthropology as a system that maybe is also quite violent. My role in this community was not to ask any questions. I didn't have much preconceived knowledge, but I was interested in trust. And that led me to these experiences that this video installation documents. It's a video installation that doesn't explain much, but it gives an experience to its audience. So one key aspect that interested me, because this film is somehow an ethnological film or a documentary, it is also about a dying culture, so a very old culture, is how to contemporize it, how to make it contemporary. And the soundtrack of this video installation plays a key role here. It was commissioned to Cameron Sadeghi, electronic music producer and performer based in New York, who took audio recordings that Martin Kusinde recorded in the same place I produced this video installation where I lived with Yagan people. So he recorded ritual songs that are nowadays in the archive of the Ethnologisches Museum in Berlin. So I took these recordings back to Chile, but also then sent them to New York, so that Cameron would be able to create an electronic music soundtrack based on ritual singing. And this soundtrack somehow works as any other techno soundtrack. It's an album of music that was commissioned and edited into the video, but it's also in itself a work. It's an LP that can be played by DJs in a club anywhere on this planet. So what happens is that this ritual music is sampled and mixed, and it becomes a new life as as entertainment music. Yeah? And that is something that is somehow very important in this project, because it takes, you know, an older culture and gives it a new life. It's a reappearance. So even approximation to a humanity in a digital age condemned to disappear reappears in the form of music. In a few of the sequences of this video installation, you see two women swiping on an iPad. You see black and white photography that stems from the Martin Gusinda estate, where it was digitalized. And that somehow, these are key scenes for me because these women engage on a digital device that they didn't know before through their own heritage. So they identify family relations of the community in their territory physically. So it's digital content, but the interaction is physical. And it allows the two women who knew these images a physical interaction, you know, with their heritage. And somehow this describes very well what I try to do in this project, is to use digital devices, both as a recording but also as a visualization medium, to contemporize a dying culture. The most important thing for any tribal community, and especially Yagans, is if they are called, as well as the nation as the culture, that they are condemned to disappear, they have to resist that. And the only way to resist a dying culture is to be progressive. Yeah? So engaging with, you know, the most recent digital device with digital content that stems from the past allows the protagonist to live their culture today. Same goes with the music. The ritual songs are remixed and resampled, which allows this music to continue to live for further generations.